There is a moment on a quiet road beneath ancient trees when the world narrows to breath and heartbeat. The Shire lies golden behind him. Bag End, with its round door and familiar comforts, is already a memory fading into the afternoon haze. Frodo Baggins walks the East Road, his steps light, his mind still half-tethered to safety. Around him, the leaves whisper their autumn song. The air smells of ripening apples and sun-warmed earth. Everything is as it should be. Then the wind changes. It carries something else now, something cold, something wrong. The birds fall silent. The insects cease their droning. Even the leaves seem to hold their breath. And from somewhere behind him, distant but drawing closer, comes the sound of hooves. Not the cheerful clatter of a farmer's pony. Not the steady rhythm of a traveler on honest business. This is something else, something deliberate, something searching. Frodo turns. His hand moves instinctively to his chest, where beneath his shirt, hidden from sight and touch, the ring hangs on its chain. It is small. It is golden. It is impossibly heavy. And then he sees it. A figure on horseback, cloaked in black so deep it seems to drink the light. The rider moves with unnatural stillness, as though the horse beneath him carries not a man but a void shaped like one. There is no face beneath the hood, no breath, no warmth, only absence. The Black Rider. Frodo does not know this name yet, but his body knows the truth before his mind catches up. Every instinct screams at him to run, to hide, to vanish into the hedgerows and press himself against the earth until the thing passes. And so he does. He slips off the road, crouches low beneath the overhanging roots of an old oak, and holds his breath. The hoofbeats grow louder, closer. The air thickens with wrongness. Frodo's hand tightens around the ring through the fabric of his shirt, and for a moment, just a moment, he feels its weight shift, feels it pulse with something that might be awareness. The rider stops, not 10 feet away, not 20, right there at the edge of the road where the shadows pool beneath the trees. The horse stamps uneasy. The rider turns his hooded head slowly, methodically, as though listening to a sound only he can hear. He sniffs the air. He waits. Frodo does not move, does not breathe, does not even think for fear that thought itself might betray him. Seconds stretch into hours, the world holds still. And then, impossibly, the rider moves on. The hoofbeats recede. The wrongness lifts like fog burned away by morning sun. Frodo gasps, trembling, his heart hammering against his ribs. He is alive. He is unseen. He is safe. But why? The ring was there. The Nazgûl, though Frodo does not yet know that name, was there. Hunter and prey within arm's reach, separated by nothing but shadow and silence. The ring, forged by Sauron, bound to Sauron, calling always to its master in the Dark Tower. It was there, screaming its presence into the unseen world. And the Nazgûl, servants of that same master, enslaved and remade for the singular purpose of finding the ring, whose entire existence is shaped around sensing its presence. He was there, searching. Yet he passed by. How? This is not a question of luck. This is not chance. This is a mystery woven into the very fabric of the story, a paradox that Tolkien placed at the heart of his tale and left shimmering with unanswered implications. The Nazgûl should have found Frodo. Every rule of the world, every law of the ring's power, every terrifying truth about the wraiths suggests that the moment should have ended in capture, in torment, in the quest's failure before it truly began. But it did not. The rider moved on. Frodo escaped. And the world, unknowing, spun on toward a future it almost never reached. So we ask again, with the weight of ages pressing down upon the question. If the ring was calling, who was answering instead? To understand the silence, we must first understand the scream. The One Ring is not a passive object. It is not merely a tool or a weapon. It is a fragment of Sauron himself, his will, his malice, his hunger for dominion given form and substance. When it was forged in the fires of Mount Doom, Sauron poured so much of his essence into it that he became inseparable from it. To destroy the ring is to destroy him. To wield the ring is to wrestle with his will, and the ring always seeks to return. Tolkien is explicit about this in his letters and within the text itself. The ring has a kind of sentience, not consciousness in the way we understand it, but purpose. It desires reunion with its master. It desires power. It desires to be found, to be worn, to be used. And it will betray any bearer eventually to achieve that end. This betrayal takes many forms. Sometimes it slips from a finger at the worst possible moment, as it did with Isildur in the river Anduin. Sometimes it whispers temptations, amplifying ambition and fear until the bearer's judgment crumbles. Sometimes it simply grows heavier, more burdensome, until carrying it becomes an agony that drowns out reason. But most dangerously, the ring calls. It sends out a signal, a resonance, a pull that ripples through the unseen world like a stone dropped into still water. Sauron feels this pull. His servants feel it. The Nazgûl, bound to him by the 9 rings they once wore, feel it more than anyone. To them, the presence of the One Ring is not a whisper. It is a beacon, bright and undeniable, or it should be. When Frodo bears the ring, he enters the liminal space between the seen and unseen. The physical world becomes hazy, less real. The Wraith world becomes vivid, immediate, terrifying. In that space, the Nazgûl exist most fully. They are strongest there. They perceive there. They hunt there. When Frodo puts the ring on, when he claims it, even briefly, he steps fully into that realm. He becomes visible to them in a way no hiding or stealth can counteract. He is exposed, naked before their gaze, a flame in the darkness that cannot be concealed. But what of when the ring is not worn? What of when it hangs hidden beneath a shirt, untouched, unclaimed? The lore suggests that even then it exerts a pull. It radiates presence. Those attuned to it, those enslaved to its master, should feel its proximity. The closer they come, the stronger the signal should grow, until denial becomes impossible. And yet, on the road near Hobbiton, in the quiet heart of the Shire, the Nazgûl stood mere feet from Frodo and sensed nothing. This is not an oversight. This is not a weakness in Tolkien's mythology. This is something stranger, deeper, more unsettling. The ring was there. The Nazgûl was there. The call should have been answered. But something intervened. Something muffled the scream. Something stood between the ring and its master's servants, a barrier invisible yet absolute. And that something is woven from threads we have yet to fully untangle. The nature of the Shire, the character of Frodo, the will of the ring itself, and the limitations of evil when it ventures into places it was never meant to tread. If the ring always betrays its bearer, why did it remain silent here? That question is a doorway. And beyond it lies a truth that reshapes everything we thought we understood about the hunt, the hunted, and the quiet miracles that saved the world. To understand why the Nazgûl failed, we must first understand what they are, and more importantly, what they are not. They are called the Black Riders, the 9, the Ringwraiths, the Nazgûl. But these are names whispered in fear, names given by those who do not fully comprehend the horror. The truth is both simpler and more terrible. They were men once, kings, sorcerers, warriors of great renown. In the Second Age, when Sauron walked the world in fair form and spoke with honeyed words, he gave them 9 rings of power. He promised them dominion, immortality, glory without end. And they accepted. The rings granted them all they were promised for a time. They lived beyond the span of mortal men. They wielded power that bent nations to their will. They became legends. But the price came due. Slowly, invisibly, the rings consumed them. Their bodies faded. Their wills eroded. They became shadows, wraiths, neither living nor dead, but something trapped between. They lost their names, their memories, their very selves. What remained was not a person, but a function. Slaves bound utterly to Sauron's will, extensions of his hatred and his hunger. They do not think as men think. They do not see as men see. The world of light and color is dim to them, a vague wash of shapes and movement. But the unseen world, the realm of spirits, of magic, of power, that is vivid to them. That is where they truly exist. When they hunt, they do not track footprints or follow roads. They sense presence. They feel the echo of power, the resonance of fear, the pull of the ring. They are drawn to it like moths to flame, helpless and relentless. And they are utterly, terrifyingly effective when they hunt in lands where shadow has taken root. But here is the crucial detail, the one that shifts everything. They are not invincible. They are not omniscient. They are limited by the same constraints that bind all of Sauron's servants. They are creatures of domination, of fear, of corruption. They thrive in places where those forces have already taken hold. They are strongest in lands long steeped in malice, where hope has withered and memory has grown dark. In such places, they are unstoppable. In Mordor, in the ruins of Minas Morgul, in the shadow-haunted lands of the east and south, there they are masters of terror. There the ring would call to them clearly, and they would answer without fail. But the Shire is something else entirely. It is a land untouched by war for generations. A land where the greatest concerns are crop yields and family feuds, and who baked the finest pie at the harvest festival. A land where power is not coveted, where domination is not understood, where the very concept of lordship is met with suspicion and quiet mockery. Evil has never taken root there. Not truly, not deeply. The shadow has passed over it time and again, but it has never lingered. The Shire exists in defiance of the great currents of history, a pocket of innocence in a world grown weary and dark. And in such a place, the Nazgûl are diminished, not destroyed, not defeated, but lessened. Their senses dull. Their presence weakens. They are predators adapted to hunt in darkness, suddenly thrust into a sunlit meadow where their natural advantages falter. This is not explicit in Tolkien's text, but it is implicit in every encounter. The Nazgûl are delayed, confused, hesitant in the Shire. They ask questions of farmers and innkeepers, something they would never need to do if their senses were sharp. They search visibly, physically, as though their supernatural perception has been blunted. The Shire resists them, not with swords or walls, but with something subtler, with contentment, with joy, with the quiet refusal to acknowledge that such evil could exist. And so, when the Nazgûl passed Frodo on that road, they were hunting blind, straining to hear a call that the land itself was muffling, reaching for a presence that slipped through their fingers like water. They were close, terribly close. But close is not enough when the world itself conspires to hide what you seek. What if the Nazgûl were blind, not by chance, but by design? Not Sauron's design, not Frodo's, but something older. Something woven into the very nature of the Shire, a protection earned not through valor, but through generations of simple, stubborn decency. But the ring was still there, and the Nazgûl were still close. Let us turn now from the hunter to the hunted, from the land to the bearer, from the external forces to the internal truth. Frodo Baggins is an unlikely hero. Tolkien makes this abundantly clear from the beginning. He is not a warrior. He is not wise in the ways of the world. He is not descended from kings or marked by prophecy. He is a hobbit, small, humble, inclined toward comfort and good food and long afternoons spent reading by the fire. And yet he is chosen, not by Gandalf, not by fate, but by the ring itself in a strange and twisted way. The ring came to Bilbo by chance, or what seemed like chance, and Bilbo, in an act of mercy and love, gave it to Frodo. No ambition, no calculation, simply the quiet passing of a burden from one generation to the next. But here is where the story takes a turn that is easy to overlook. Frodo does not desire the ring. This seems obvious. Of course he doesn't. No sane person would desire such a cursed object. But the point is deeper than that. Frodo does not desire power. He does not dream of dominion. He does not harbor secret ambitions to rule or reshape the world. He is, in the truest sense, humble. This humility is a shield. The ring responds to the desires of its bearer. It amplifies them, twists them, uses them as hooks to sink its influence deeper. It tempted Isildur with visions of strength and kingship. It tempted Boromir with dreams of saving Gondor. It tempted even Gandalf and Galadriel, offering them the power to do good, a power that would inevitably corrupt them. But Frodo, what can the ring offer him? A larger pantry, a more comfortable armchair. There is nothing in Frodo for the ring to grasp, no ambition to magnify, no pride to exploit. He carries it not because he wants to, but because someone must. He bears it as a burden, not a treasure. And this changes everything. The ring does not scream as loudly when worn by one who does not claim it. It does not betray as eagerly when its bearer refuses to wield it. The call is still there, always, inevitably, but it is muted, quieter, less urgent. When Frodo hid beneath the tree, he did not think of using the ring. He did not consider putting it on to escape or bargain or fight. He simply clutched it instinctively, the way a child clutches a beloved toy in the dark. It was precious to him, yes. Already the ring's influence was working, but he did not see it as a weapon or a tool. And so the ring, in its strange and calculating will, did not reveal him. This is not mercy. The ring is incapable of mercy, but it is cunning. It has a kind of low, animal intelligence, enough to understand dimly that revealing Frodo in that moment would doom itself. The Nazgûl would take him. They would bring the ring to Sauron. And once in Sauron's hands, the ring would never be destroyed. It would be complete, victorious, eternal. But the ring, for all its malice, does not have foresight. It does not see the grand arc of the story. It operates on instinct, on hunger, on the primal urge to survive and grow stronger. And in that moment, survival meant silence. If Frodo had been Boromir, the ring would have betrayed him instantly. The ringwraith would have felt the call of ambition and arrogance blazing like a bonfire. If Frodo had been Isildur, the same. Power calls to power. Domination recognizes its own kind. But Frodo was none of those things. He was small, quiet, unambitious, a bearer so unlikely that even the ring in its twisted logic hesitated. What if the ring did not want to be found yet? Not because it loved Frodo, not because it had changed its nature, but because in the cold calculus of its will, patience served it better than haste. The ring was waiting. For what it did not know, but it was waiting, and that waiting saved everything. There is another force at play here. one that Tolkien weaves through the entire tale with masterful subtlety. Fear, the Nazgûl do not merely hunt, they terrorize. Fear is their weapon, their tool, their very essence. They are creatures designed not just to find the ring, but to break the will of anyone who stands in their way. They radiate dread. Their presence warps the air, chills the blood, turns courage to ash. Against men, this is devastatingly effective. Even the bravest warriors feel their resolve crumble when the Black Riders draw near. Kings and captains have been known to falter, to hesitate, to flee. Fear is a contagion, and the Nazgûl are its carriers. But against hobbits do not respond to fear the way men do. This is not because they are braver, though they can be. It is because they do not have the same ambitions, the same pride, the same towering sense of self that fear can topple. Men fear death because they crave glory. They fear failure because they desire greatness. They fear loss because they value power and legacy. The Nazgûl prey on these fears, magnifying them until they become unbearable. But hobbits, they fear discomfort. They fear missing second breakfast. They fear looking foolish in front of their neighbors. These are not the kinds of fears the Nazgûl can exploit. When the Black Rider stopped on the road, Frodo was terrified. There is no denying that. But his terror was simple, primal, the fear of a small creature hiding from a predator. It was not the existential dread of a man contemplating his doom. It was the fear of a mouse in the shadow of a hawk, and crucially, Frodo did not break. He did not scream. He did not run. He froze, yes, but he endured. He held his breath and waited, and the Nazgûl, for all their power, could not crack him open. Without fear to amplify Frodo's presence, the Nazgûl had nothing to latch onto. They could sense the barest echo of the ring, perhaps, a whisper, a flicker, but it was not enough. Not here, not yet. The Shire had dulled their senses. Frodo's humility had muted the ring's call, and now his quiet, stubborn endurance denied them the fear they needed to complete the hunt. They were hunting blind, deaf, and frustrated, but fear was coming. With every step Frodo took away from the Shire, the protection of that innocent land weakened. With every mile closer to Mordor, the Nazgûl's power grew. And with every moment of mounting danger, Frodo's fear would deepen, until it became something the Nazgûl could finally, unmistakably sense. The silence would not last forever, and when it broke, the world would hold its breath once more. Let us speak now of the ring's will, an idea both central and elusive in Tolkien's work. The ring is not alive in any traditional sense. It does not think, does not plan, does not experience emotion. But it has purpose. It has drive. It operates according to a kind of dark instinct, shaped by Sauron's essence but not entirely controlled by him. This distinction matters. If the ring were simply Sauron's puppet, it would betray its bearer instantly and always. Every moment Frodo wore it, Sauron would know. Every breath, every step would be revealed. The hunt would be trivial. But the ring is more complicated than that. It seeks reunion with Sauron, yes, but it also seeks power for itself. It wants to be worn, to be used, to exert influence. It is a parasite that needs a host, even as it slowly kills that host. And so it calculates. Crudely, instinctively, but it calculates. When Isildur wore the ring and was ambushed by orcs at the Gladden Fields, the ring betrayed him. It slipped from his finger as he swam the river, exposing him to the arrows of his enemies. Why? Because Isildur was fleeing, weakened, isolated. His death would free the ring to be found by someone stronger, someone more useful. When Gollum possessed the ring for centuries, it did not betray him, at least not in the same way. It twisted him, yes. It prolonged his life unnaturally, turning him into a wretched, broken thing. But it stayed with him because Gollum was useful in his own way. He kept the ring hidden. He kept it safe. And in his obsessive, possessive love for it, he gave the ring a kind of sustenance. When Bilbo found the ring, it allowed itself to be taken. Why? Perhaps because Bilbo's mercy toward Gollum marked him as someone the ring could use. Perhaps because the ring sensed, dimly, that the world was changing and it needed to move. And when Frodo inherited the ring, the calculation continued. At the beginning of the journey, revealing Frodo would be disaster. The Nazgûl would capture him, yes, but they would also bring the ring directly to Sauron. And once in the Dark Lord's possession, the ring's agency would vanish. It would be absorbed back into Sauron's will, a tool rather than a thing with its own existence. The ring, in its strange, selfish way, wanted more time, more influence, more chance to corrupt and claim its bearer fully before returning to its master. So it waited. It whispered to Frodo, yes. It grew heavier, yes. It planted the seeds of obsession and fear, but it did not scream. Not yet. On the road near Hobbiton, when the Nazgûl passed close, the ring made no effort to reveal itself. It lay dormant, silent, calculating. It sensed, perhaps, that its bearer was still too innocent, too uncorrupted. That handing itself over now would be premature. The ring was playing a long game, but the game would not last forever. Every step toward Mordor brought Frodo closer to the breaking point. Every burden, every fear, every moment of despair weakened his resistance. And the ring was patient. It had waited centuries already. It could wait a little longer. But there would come a moment when patience ended, when the ring judged that its bearer was ready, or that the danger of remaining hidden outweighed the danger of revelation. That moment was coming, and when it arrived, the Nazgûl would not pass by. They would see clearly, unmistakably, and they would strike. What changed when Frodo reached Weathertop? Ammon's Soul, the Hill of Watching, the ancient ruin where kingdoms once stood guard over the wild lands between Rivendell and the Shire. Now it is little more than a broken crown of stone, haunted by wind and memory. It is here that everything changes. Frodo has been fleeing for days. The Nazgûl have closed in, relentless and patient. The protection of the Shire is far behind him now. He is in the wild lands, the empty places where shadow has crept back in over long centuries. The air is colder. The nights are darker. And fear, which had been a distant tremor, is now a constant, gnawing presence. Aragorn is with him, Strider, the ranger, grim and watchful. He knows what hunts them. He knows the danger. And he has done everything he can to keep Frodo hidden, to move quickly and quietly to avoid the Nazgûl's gaze. But they are surrounded. On the night atop Weathertop, the Nine converge. They come from all directions, closing the trap. There is no escape, no clever evasion. The hobbits huddle together, small and terrified. Aragorn stands before them, a single torch in his hand, defiant but vastly outnumbered. And Frodo, in his terror and desperation, makes a choice. He puts on the ring. The world shifts. Colors drain away. The fire dims to a sullen glow. The physical forms of the Nazgûl, cloaked and hooded, are replaced by their true shapes, tall, crowned, terrible, wreathed in the cold light of the Wraith world. They are no longer searching. They are seeing. And Frodo is no longer hidden. He is a flame in the darkness, a beacon, undeniable. The Witch King, greatest of the Nine, strides forward. He raises his blade, a cursed thing, a Morgul knife designed not to kill but to transform, to turn its victim into a wraith like himself. He strikes. Aragorn intervenes. The blade misses Frodo's heart, but it pierces his shoulder. The wound is catastrophic, not in flesh but in spirit. A shard of the blade remains, working its poison, dragging Frodo step by step toward the shadow. But here is the question. Why now? Why did Frodo put on the ring here when he had resisted every impulse to do so before? The answer is layered. First, fear. Not the simple fear of the road, but existential terror. The Nazgûl are no longer distant shadows. They are here, surrounding him, inescapable. The primal urge to disappear, to escape, to hide overwhelms him. Second, the ring's will. It has been patient, yes, but patience has its limits. The ring senses the Nazgûl's proximity and understands that the moment of revelation has arrived. It whispers to Frodo, urges him, plants the thought that wearing it is the only way to survive. Third, location. Weathertop is not the Shire. It is a place steeped in old power, old sorrow. The barriers that muted the ring's call are gone here. The Nazgûl's senses are sharp again, and the ring in this place feels the pull of its master more strongly than ever. And fourth, Aragorn. This is the piece that is often overlooked, but it is crucial. When Frodo puts on the ring and enters the Wraith world, he sees the Nazgûl clearly, but they also see him clearly. More than that, they see what is around him. And what they see is Aragorn, Isildur's heir, the last descendant of the line of kings, standing defiant with fire in his hand. The ring knows this. On some level, it calculates that revealing Frodo in Aragorn's presence might be advantageous. Aragorn is strong. Aragorn is a potential wielder, someone the ring could corrupt, someone through whom it could reclaim power. The ring is gambling. The Nazgûl see Frodo, yes, but they also see a king. And in their ancient, fragmented understanding, they hesitate just long enough for Aragorn to drive them back. The ring revealed Frodo, but not for the reason you think. It was not surrender. It was strategy. The ring was trying to maneuver itself into a position of greater influence, greater possibility. It misjudged, as it often does. Its intelligence is crude, its foresight non-existent. But the gamble was there. And Frodo paid the price. The wound on Weathertop nearly destroyed him. For days, he faded, growing colder and more translucent, slipping toward the Wraith world with every step. Only Elrond's power and Gandalf's intervention saved him. But the silence was broken. The Nazgûl had seen him. The hunt was no longer a matter of searching, it was a matter of pursuit. From Weathertop onward, Frodo would never be truly hidden again. There is a deeper truth beneath all of this, one that cuts to the heart of Sauron's failure, not just in the hunt for Frodo, but in the entire War of the Ring. Sauron is powerful beyond measure. He is ancient, cunning, patient. He has rebuilt his strength over millennia, bent nations to his will, and come within a breath of total victory more than once. He is a Maya, a demigod, a servant of Morgoth who learned well the arts of domination and deceit. But he has a fatal flaw. He cannot conceive of weakness as strength. Sauron's entire worldview is built on power. He believes that might makes right, that the strong will inevitably dominate the weak, that anyone who possesses the ring will inevitably try to use it. This is not merely his philosophy. It is the bedrock of his existence. He fell into evil because he desired order, control, perfection enforced through domination. And so, when he searches for the ring, he looks for power. He expects the ring to be carried by a king, a wizard, a warrior. He expects it to be claimed by someone with ambition, someone who will try to wield it against him. His entire strategy is built on this assumption. He fortifies his borders. He watches his enemies. He prepares for a confrontation with someone mighty. He never imagines that the ring would be carried by a hobbit. Not because hobbits are weak, though they are by the measure of armies and swords, but because they are innocent, because they do not crave power, because the very thing that makes them perfect ring-bearers is the thing Sauron cannot understand. This blindness extends to the Nazgûl. They are extensions of Sauron's will, shaped by his understanding. They hunt as he would hunt. They search for power, for ambition, for the telltale signs of someone trying to wield the ring. And so they miss Frodo. Again and again, they come close, but they do not see him, because they are not looking for someone like him. On the road near Hobbiton, they passed by because Frodo did not register as a threat. The ring's call was muted, yes, but even if it had been louder, they might still have dismissed it. A hobbit, impossible, unthinkable. Even later, when the hunt intensifies and the Nazgûl close in, their focus is divided. They sense the ring, but they also sense Aragorn, and their ancient hatred for the line of kings draws them like moths to flame. They assume Aragorn is the prize, the true bearer, and Frodo is merely, what? A decoy, a servant. They cannot imagine the truth, that the fate of Middle-earth rests on the shoulders of the smallest, most overlooked creature in the story. This is Sauron's greatest weakness. His inability to imagine goodness, humility, self-sacrifice. He has lived so long in the darkness that he has forgotten what light looks like, and so he overlooks it, even when it stands directly before him. The Nazgûl missed Frodo because their master could not conceive of his role, and this blindness would persist all the way to the fires of Mount Doom. Even at the end, when Frodo and Sam stood at the cracks of doom, Sauron's eye was turned elsewhere, watching for armies, for challenges, for threats that made sense to him. He never looked for two hobbits walking quietly into his domain. Evil's greatest flaw is revealed, its inability to understand goodness. What other moments did evil overlook? Simply because it could not imagine them. How many times in the story does victory hinge not on strength, but on being underestimated? On the enemy's failure to see what is right before them, because it does not fit their understanding of the world. The list is long. Merry and Pippin, captured by Saruman's forces, dismissed as irrelevant, yet their actions lead to the Ents' march on Isengard. Sam, thought dead or insignificant, rescuing Frodo from the Tower of Cirith Ungol. Eowyn, a woman striking down the Witch King when no man could. Again and again, the great and terrible overlook the small and humble, and the world is saved because of it. And so we return one final time to that quiet road beneath the trees. The Nazgûl passed by. The ring remained hidden. History turned on a moment of silence that no one noticed at the time. There was no grand battle, no heroic confrontation, no triumph of arms, just a small hobbit crouched beneath a tree, holding his breath and hoping the nightmare would pass. And it did, not because of destiny, not because of prophecy, not because some cosmic force decreed it, but because of a confluence of small, fragile things. The innocence of the Shire, the humility of Frodo, the cunning silence of the ring, the blindness of evil to anything that does not fit its worldview. Each element alone would not have been enough, but together, woven into a single moment, they created a space where the impossible happened. Frodo was not found, and because he was not found, he continued. He reached Rivendell. He took up the quest. He walked into Mordor and stood at the edge of Mount Doom, and in the end, the ring was destroyed. All because, on a quiet afternoon in the Shire, a black rider looked directly at the light and did not recognize it. This is the truth that Tolkien whispers through his entire mythology. The world is not saved by the mighty. It is saved by the small, the overlooked, the underestimated, by mercy and humility and the quiet courage to endure when all seems lost. Frodo did not defeat the Nazgûl on that road. He simply survived them. He hid, he trembled, he waited, and he was not found. That is not a lesser victory. That is the only victory that mattered. Because without that moment of silence, there would have been no quest, no fellowship, no march to the Black Gate, no destruction of the ring. The story would have ended there on a forgotten road, in a land that most of Middle-earth did not even know existed. But it did not end. The Nazgûl rode on. Frodo lived. And the world, unknowing, was given a chance. The silence did not last, of course. It never does. By the time Frodo reached Weathertop, the protection was gone. By the time he entered Mordor, the ring's call was a constant scream, and only the most desperate stealth and the most incredible luck kept him alive. But that first silence, that moment of grace on the road near Hobbiton, was the foundation upon which everything else was built. Without it, there would have been no story. And perhaps that is the most unsettling truth of all. The fate of Middle-earth did not hinge on great councils or mighty armies. It hinged on a single moment when evil looked directly at its enemy and failed to see him. Not because the enemy was hidden, not because the enemy was clever, but because the enemy was so small, so humble, so utterly unlikely that evil could not comprehend his existence. The Nazgûl were standing over Frodo. The ring was there, calling, yearning to be found. And still they passed by, because sometimes the fate of the world is decided in silence, in the space between breaths, in the moment when darkness looks directly at the light and does not recognize it. That is the miracle. That is the mystery. That is the truth that saved everything. And now, in the quiet after the tale, we are left with a question that echoes through the ages. How many other miracles have we overlooked? How many other moments of grace have passed unnoticed, simply because they were too small, too humble, too easily dismissed? The Nazgûl missed Frodo. Sauron missed the hobbits. Evil missed the very thing that would destroy it. What else has been missed? What other quiet heroes have walked through the world, unrecognized and unremarked, carrying burdens we will never know? What other moments of silence have turned the wheel of history, unseen and uncelebrated? Tolkien does not answer these questions. He leaves them hanging, like the last note of a song that fades into the wind. But he invites us to wonder, to look more carefully at the small things, to honor the overlooked, to understand that the greatest victories are often the quietest. The Nazgûl passed by. Frodo lived. The ring was destroyed. And the world moved on, never knowing how close it came to ending on a quiet road beneath the trees. That is the story. That is the silence that saved everything, and it is worth remembering.